Welcome everybody to this event that is co-organized by the International Council on Archives and the project EUreka3D. My name is Valentina Bachi, I'm from Consortium, the project coordinator for EUreka3D. And to start this event, I am happy to share my screen and talk a little bit about this project. And then I will give the floor to our keynote speaker, David Iglésias Franch from the CRDI Ajuntament de Girona. And after the keynote speech, there will be a session for discussion, question and answer, moderated by Natalie Lass from the National Archives of Latvia. So I'm sharing my screen now. And I hope you can see it. Can I have a feedback? Is the screen okay?
Yes, Valentina.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I said, this is a webinar co-organized by the International Council on Archives and the project EUreka3D. It is part of a webinar series that is becoming now a very nice recurrent event. So we had the first series already in the fall last year, and the recordings are available. And now this is the second event for 2024. The scope of these webinars is really to help cultural institutions in their digital transformation journey. And particularly, we would like to help building capacity, especially on the new scenarios of changes and particularly on the changes brought in by this push to 3D digitization. And in these events, we normally discuss various themes. We share good practices. We try to showcase resources and tools. It is a webinar, as I mentioned, there is a keynote speak, but then there will be time for discussion, question and answer. And if you have any question to the speakers, you can add your question in the question and answer box that you see at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat if you would like to share your thoughts, but we kindly ask you to add your question to the speakers in the question and answer box. So I said that this is the second event for the 2024 series. We had one last month on digital media authenticity. It was very nice, very successful, by a speaker from the Vrije University of Brussels, Professor Frederik Temmermans, and the recordings are available on the EUreka3D website. Today, as an early celebration of the World Day of Audiovisual Heritage, we are exactly discussing how audiovisual heritage and 3D go together with the speech by David. And there will be the third event in nearly 3 weeks on the 15th November, and this will be focused on file formats and preservation in cultural heritage. So you can check our website, look at the recordings, register for the next events. So I mentioned the EUreka3D project. It is indeed a project co-funded by the Digital Europe program, and it is a well-mature project. We are approaching the end. It lasted 2 years. It will conclude at the end of December. And what we did, as I mentioned, is to focus on supporting 3D digitization of cultural heritage. The project has done a lot of things, even if the time frame was rather short, because it was only 2 years. The most concrete outcomes of the project is this data hub that is a dedicated suite of tools and services for cultural heritage institutions who want or need to store, preserve, manage, and share data, metadata, and paradata generated in 3D digitization project. The Data Hub is particularly interesting for cultural heritage institutions because it is based on clouds that are set in Europe, so you don't need to buy service outside in private, maybe United States-based companies. It includes a safe access to the data via an authentication and authorization infrastructure. It offers a PID service to grant the long-term preservation and availability of online objects. It includes a visualization tool, so a 3D viewer to showcase the 3D model of digitized heritage on the web, and it is fully integrated and compatible with Europeana. Europeana, as most of you certainly know, is the digital gateway to discover cultural heritage in Europe. And it is also at the basis of the new data space for cultural heritage, that is this new environment where cultural heritage institutions, museums, galleries, archives are really invited to participate with their collection. As part of the project, besides this infrastructure, we delivered a quite intense series and program of capacity building events and resources. This event today is part of this program. And of course, we have done digitization in 3D of various types of cultural heritage, and these are being published in the data space for cultural heritage. As I mentioned, this project is coming to an end, but it will be followed by a continuation project that starts in February. So while EUreka3D is focused on really helping institutions to implement high-quality 3D digitization and created services, tools, guidelines, case studies, and so on and so forth, EUreka3D XR is the continuation project where we really want to explore what we can do with these 3D collections of cultural heritage that are being digitized and shared on the digital realm. And in particular, EUreka3D XR, as the name suggests, will develop innovative reuse scenarios and tools to create extended reality applications for cultural heritage promotion. So, as I mentioned, EUreka3D XR is starting next February. It is even shorter than EUreka3D. It is 18 months. And the main objectives of this project are to really reuse and transform cultural content 3D, but not only 3D, also 2D, video, text, maps, stories, all that is preserved in cultural institutions and in archives, to create extended reality scenarios. And of course, given this is also a project to support the European Common Data Space for Cultural Heritage, to deliver these 3D scenarios and to support other institutions to take inspiration and to build the capacity also in this area of reuse for 3D collections. There are 3 showcase scenarios, or pilot as we call it. One is about the virtual visualization of the Middle Ages walls of the city of Girona. Then we have a scenario about archaeological excavation in France in the Bibracte Celtic and Roman site, and the recreation and reenactment of the life of a saint or monk in Cyprus that will come back to life in his environment where he lived. So I will not take much more time, and I'm giving the floor to David in a moment. I just wanted to mention that we are organizing this final event for EUreka3D. It is an hybrid event in Girona and online, and it will include the public part where we will present all the outcomes of the project and discuss the latest developments, and the dedicated workshop. So you are very, very welcome to follow us. The registration is open. So yes, you are very welcome to look at the website and join us. And I think this is my last slide. Yes. So I stop the sharing. Okay. And I am happy to give the floor to David for the keynote speech. Please, David, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Valentina. And it was good to listen to your presentation, because now we have an idea of the project, and it will be easier for me to explain our experience with the audiovisual heritage and the 3D digitization of these objects. Well, first of all, the reason that this webinar is this week is that this week is the week of the cultural heritage. The 27th is the World Day of Cultural Heritage. I will share my screen. Okay, so 27 October is the World Day of Audiovisual Heritage.
Sorry, David, to interrupt you. We are not seeing your screen.
You are not seeing my screen?
No.
Sorry. Now?
I guess it is coming.
Now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yes, so this week is the week of the World Day for the Audiovisual Heritage, and this is something that is happening since 2005, as UNESCO decided that we need to focus on this heritage to raise the awareness of the importance of audiovisuals, and there is a coordinating council that I think is worthy to know, that is the CCAAA, that this council is the one who leads this celebration on behalf of UNESCO, and this integrates different associations around the world that are focused on TV or films, etc. Like FIAT, FIA, FIFLA. You can read the organizations that, and also ICA, because archives, we also have an important part of our collections that are audiovisual. Here you are an example of the institution I represent, that is the Center for Image Research and Dissemination in Girona City in Catalonia. And you see that we have thousands of hours of video, 1,500 films, thousands of hours of audio, and close to 3 million photographic images. So that's an important part of the collections that we manage. So if we have a look, for example, in our country, in Catalonia, and we just focus on TV, you see from the last inventory that we have 200,000 hours of video, and it's spread in all the territory. And even just this is the period of the analogic TV, mainly local TV, private and public. So you see how many images are created during this short time of the history. So, and these images are really interesting, because it represents the images of sometimes small villages, or cities, small cities, etc. So every place have a TV station at that period, and this is part of our audiovisual heritage. So when we go to the definitions of what is audiovisual heritage, there are differences. So I took the one from ICA, and you see that it includes photographic heritage and also audiovisual heritage. And with photographic heritage, it's not only photographs, but it's also documents related to photography, like registers, account books, technical documents, correspondence, invoices, etc. Personal documents, everything related to this. And audiovisual heritage, it's film, it's audio, it's photographs, but it's also a script, a stage material, etc. And if we go to a museum definition, all the devices would be also included, of course. But there are differences. For example, in the white paper of UNESCO, they don't consider photography as photography is something separated, and just consider the photographs that are linked to films, for example, or other definitions that they separate the audio records. But what is important is that all these records, objects, etc., are linked, because this is the fundamentals for the creation and the evolution of the visual culture. So it started the 18th century, and we are still in this process. So ICI had the initiative to publish this chronology, and in this chronology, we put all these things together. You see, we have the cinema, the photography, amateur film, TV, video, sound, and if you have a look at this chronology, you will see, for example, that there are a device that is a kinetoscope, that is the first film viewer, but it's something that was individual. And after 5 years, we have the first cinema projector, the cinematograph Lumiere, sorry. And with this device, you could capture images, and you could also project these images. And at the same time, photography was presenting an innovative color process by Liebman, or it appears the pocket cameras. And in the sound field, for example, also Thomas Edison, the inventor of kinetoscope, some years later, he was able to synchronize it with a phonograph. So what is really important is to realize that this technology is connected, and when we explain a story from here, we need to integrate all this. And this is where EUreka3D starts, related to audiovisual heritage, because we focus on this collection, on the Cinema Museum collection, because what's important is here, it's one of the most important collections of pre-cinema and early cinema. And if you go to and visit the museums, you will find the objects there, but also the context, the shows, the performance. For example, this one that we see in the slide with this projector with two lenses that was able to create movement, effects, etc. So it's not just the objects, but what the objects means in the context of production creation. So here is the idea that one of our partners in the project insists, and I think it's something really crucial, the idea of memory twins. We are not just reproducing these objects in a most perfect way, but we also are linking this object to all the records, all the meanings that explain the utility of all this. So the concept of memory twin is something really very appreciated for us, because it makes sense of what we do in the cultural sector, not just reproduction. So you probably ask yourself, and why 3D digitization for an archive? Because archive is primarily a place for preservation and custody, but it's also a space for discovery. There are many connections. We can discover many things. It's not that they are hidden, but you need to know how to get knowledge from all these records, all this knowledge that is there. So you need these connections. Discovery is something important for archives. Also knowledge, it's more evident because the knowledge is on the content, Experimentation, technology let us a lot of experimentation there, and creation, for example, for art creations, etc. So with 3D digitizations allows the representation of volumetric elements to provide a faithful representation for analysis, research, and entertainment. So this is completely aligned with our goals. And this means that the technology, it's used to accomplish our goals. So 3D is also part of this technology, is part of this process of digital transformation. It's a small area, but it's important, and we are experimenting with this. And then what's also important is when you start with a new technology like 3D, you need a methodology before starting projects, but you also need some pilots. You need to experiment. And here we have an experience from 2 years ago. That was the digitization of our daguerreotype collections, 99 daguerreotypes. And here we learn mainly the technical difficulties, because daguerreotype is a unique artifact, but it is a mirror itself. So there are a lot of challenges from the technical point of view. So we succeed on this. We manage well. Daguerreotypes are on Europeana, but at this time we still didn't have a methodology. So EUreka3D provide this, and mainly it let us face the main challenges for 3D digitization. One challenge is achieving high quality digital reproduction. And this means that it's not enough with best equipment. You require skilled professionals, a working methodology, the ability to analyze the complexity of the objects that you will reproduce, and criteria to assess the results. Another challenge is making the content accessible, because it's not just well-documented objects. We are skilled on this. We know how to document it, but also you need an infrastructure. And then preserving the objects. This is more difficult. There was a webinar. The webinar before was focused on file formats, and there is a complexity there because we need a standard. This structural informations, manage all this is always a difficulty, but okay, we need to be informed about which formats to use, and also the paradata, the technical and the context information for the creation of these objects. So having this in mind, we start the project, and I think there are 10 issues that I would like to talk about. First of all is the preparatory works. First, you need to digitize. In this case, you have the opportunity to digitize 50 objects. The collections have thousands of objects. So you need to select, and you need a criteria. So we establish different categories. And so some of these devices are for projection, others for capturing, for viewing, for animation. That means to simulate motion, optical illusions and tricks that are very related, and amateur cinema. So we selected 50 objects that can explain well this period of the mainly of the pre-cinema, also the early cinema. And then for preparatory works, you need to, in our case, externalize digitization, because we don't have the equipment, we don't have the knowledge, we are not technicians in this sense, and we go for a tender. But when you call for tender, you need to know what are the requirements. And so you need guidelines, you need a methodology, and this is provided by this BGA study that was written in 2020 by the Cyprus University of Technology that is member in EUreka3D. And in EUreka3D, we created a product from this study that are these digitization guidelines. Because with these guidelines, the information is more simplified. And you also have a step-by-step for working in a 3D project. So it tells you what you need to do in order to be successful. So all this information is related. It's more driven, I would say. So it helps to cultural institutions to develop a project like this. In our case, the tender was awarded to La Tempesta Media. The technician that make the war is participating in the webinar, so you will have time to ask him whatever you want if you want to. So La Tempesta Media, they are very experienced in 3D and also in other technologies. So they did a very good work, and you will see the result. Well, another aspect is the copyright. This is also important because without control of copyright, you cannot make it public. So in this case, it's not complicated because all is in public domain. So we label it as public domain in Creative Commons, and we don't have national laws that create new rights for the 3D production. So in this sense, we keep the level of public domain. Then the complexity, you also need to know beforehand what's the complexity of the project. And with this methodology of CUT that I told you before, you have all the elements you need to consider. The equipment, of course, but also environment condition. That's not important when it's a museum and it's inside the team, the project, etc., and the object. You will see that the object is very important. You need to know the difficulties of the object. So for this reason, we created this sheet with all the information we needed to know very detailed what are the difficulties. Because, for example, transparencies are a great difficulty, but also lens. All these are something that you need to manage and solve, because otherwise the result is not good. So we analyze a restorer from the city council, analyze every object, and with in a very detailed way. So if it's wood, for example, she identifies the color, the grain, the fiber, texture, and the classification to distinguish if it's coniferous or leafy types, and other information. So also for metals, for paper, for glass, we need a specific information in order to have an idea of the complexity of the digitization. And then is the capturing process. The technique we use is photogrammetry. That is the technique that people use for objects like this, of this size. And so what you need is, well, a camera with polarizing filters for these problems with reflections, then illuminations according to the ISO standards, then adjust camera settings. And what's important is to place a scale bar, because you need later for addition. And for you to have an idea, for every object, they took like near 200 images, because you need then to have all of them just to be safe when you create the textures on the geometry you create for the object. And then there is this stacking technique for the details, where you from the same point of view, you capture a lot of images and then you mix it and you finish with one of these images. And then is the post-processing, that you have your raw proprietary image that you migrate to DNG format, and from here you create the JPEGs, okay? And then you need to align the image, build the mesh, apply the textures. That is done with the meta shape file. And then you have the master. But you need low resolution for the online. And then this could be also an OBG, but it depends on the effects. Like when you have lenses or glass, you need to create a different format that is GLB. And in our case, we also created some videos because it's a way to show in different situations that is also helpful in order to explain mainly to explain the project. The other aspect is the storage. You see, for 50 objects, it's 1.5 terabytes, 46,000 files. That's a lot. With 1.5 terabyte is the ingestion of photographic images each year in our archive. So just 50 image means the same. So for this, as Valentin announced, there is this data hub that was created in the project, and you can publish, upload all the files there, because these files are could be also interesting for research. So it's not that just that we show the 3D, but you can be interested in the images, in all the details, in the master, etc. So you have everything there. And it's a way that all institutions have the possibility to publish and to manage a project like this. Then, of course, metadata in order to objects be well documented. And for this, the starting point is just to have the good information as we are used to have, and with using a standard. Then you map this and you can publish in EUreka or in any place, but you need to have the information. And this is the main part, that you can start with an XML file from your database or whatever. And also really important is the enrichment, the use of vocabularies, because I told before about the specificities of the materials when we analyze the objects, but then we need to link this information, and there is specified vocabularies that can be used for this, like the AAT, the Getty Thesaurus, and here you have an example of some of the terms that we use for this project. Then, as I said, it's not just metadata, but also paradata. And this means all the technical information and all the information related to the context of creation of the digitization. And for this, the technicians, the company, La Tempesta, that make the work, they also wrote a report with all this technical information. But then we are converting this to a standard report that is the one that proposed CUT, using an app that that let you show some graphical, some visual information like the one you see in the quality chart on the right. So this process of taking the metadata, the paradata, so the technical information, also the information of context, and then to present it in a visual way, something that can be easy understood. And from here, when you have everything, you can open the information. You can publish, for example, to Europeana, as mentioned by Valentina. And so this is a transformation to EDM, that is RDF. And so This then is gathered by Europeana from the Data Hub server. This is the usual process, but the main thing is that you have an infrastructure for 3D. I think this is the good news for all of us. We have solutions to publish our content. Well, then something important is after, when the work is done, we need to create narratives to explain all this. And one of the possibilities is the editorials. In this case, the editorials that are published in Europeana. And for audiovisual heritage, we focus on two themes. One is the optical views, and the other is the magic lantern. Okay, but this is information that explain the importance of all this heritage. However, here you can access to the 3D elements, but it's not really a reuse itself. Just that you have better information because you have the 3D instead of the 2D images. The idea of reuse is something that comes after. Valentina announced this project about XR. That is very important because mainly for archives, because in this project, for example, we will show the walls in 3D. And what we have is films, 2D images, documents, maps, etc. So we will transform this to a geometry, to a 3D model, from 2D to 3D. Okay, but now I was mainly thinking about the idea of reusing this content already created in 3D, like this one in Europe, in EUreka3D. So here are an example of our idea. We organized an exhibition about daguerreotypes in 2021, so in the COVID times, and we had the idea of creating an extended reality experience with glasses, and to show how it works, a daguerreotype lab. So you have all the devices, all the elements, the camera, and then you can take with your hands and understand how it works, because you have everything. In EUreka3D, we digitized everything. But because of COVID, we were unable to create this, and we just create an interactive resource where you, with your mouse, you select what you want and you do your own daguerreotype. But it's not an immersive experience. It's not extended reality. It's just something that we create on the screen on the website. However, this is the idea, is to you can create something that explains better how these devices, how all this equipment was used in the period. And as I visited Uruguay 2 weeks ago, here I can explain experience that is exactly what we want to do in the near future. For example, they had one of these street cameras where the photographs are developed inside the camera. So they use the glasses. You can go to a historical place like the main square in Montevideo, and with the use of this camera, you can take a picture, but you can develop the picture. You have the negative, you create the positive print, and everything happens inside. So it's very difficult to understand this when you read this. Instead, if you have this experience using this 3D object that is quite real, then you have the whole experience of taking a picture with one of these street cameras. So the conclusions of this presentation are the following. First, you need a scientific approach for 3D digitization. You need digitization is a scientific process, so you need to know what are the requirements, what are the criteria, what is the methodology you need to use in order to have a successful project. Then it's important to have an understanding of the heritage objects, because the technology is used for this for the heritage. So it's not just it's a show from the technology, but what makes sense is that we are focused on the heritage. So we need to understand how it works, how it worked originally in the period, and you need to understand the cultural context of the use of these objects. For example, if you think with a magic, if we think in a magic lantern, what was a show? What represents? How people in the 19th century, what they experiment and how they are related to this new technology at that time. And then the other idea is the reusability of the 3D digital objects. When we have these objects, we have a very good reproduction. We need to think in the possibilities to reuse. It can be something like printing. It's something we will do in the Cinema Museum in Girona, because it helps for the visitors. But we can have some digital experiences like in XR, all these immersive experiences. So reusability is something important. And to finish, and for you to enjoy, I show you some of the objects that are digitized in this project, like this patinoscope. This is from the middle of the 19th century, and with the movement of the wheels, you have the feeling of the movement of the designs that you can see on the screen. Then the next one is a Kinora. A Kinora, it was very popular for watching movies. It's something that is completely manual. There are the designs there, and you need to move, and then you have the feeling of movement, and you can watch a movie there. And it was very popular, mainly in UK before the First World War. The next one is a film projector. A film projector, you see here are very details. This is a difficulty for digitization, also lens, also transparencies. But this is a projector that already includes these wheels. That was something additional, but that is separate from the projector. So this let people project any size of film. So you see all the details. And then this statue of porcelain of mid-18th century, that is, it represents a street vendor with a peep show. So the woman is looking in this hall, and there she can see images, for example, engravings from other parts of the wall. So this was something really innovative at the period to show images from other places, just looking in a hall. So that's all for my presentation, and I think now it's time for questions and answers.
Thank you, David, for your very interesting presentation. And today we are joined by Paul Guil, a representative from a company La Tempesta Media, and I would like to direct the first question to him. So Paul, David mentioned that the challenges of digitalization for transparent and reflective objects, how did you manage this process and were you fully successful in overcoming these difficulties?
Okay, so thank you for your question. And I'm not gonna lie, it is difficult. So these objects have many difficulties, but it is not impossible if you follow a specified methodology and some guidelines that will help the software to process the 3D model. And I have slides that I can share you where you will be able to see these guidelines. Okay, so I hope you can see well my screen. So first of all, it is mandatory to use cross polarization. So using a filter, as you see in this metallic part, you can spot the reflection of the bases. But turning the filter can make it disappear. Also, one pretty obvious thing is to take good images. And this is an example of not a good image. Sometimes you have just to move the focus, and even using cross polarization, you can get this. And this is a good picture, which you can process and correctly digitize this. Also, here you have a mirror. This is so problematic. Mostly it's the most problematic part, but if you process it, masking it, so you're telling the program, do not process me this, it will work better. You can help the program by doing this. And you can use these images where it is more neutral to help the program to work, construct the 3D model, construct the mesh, and also texture it. Also, when all of these steps still don't work because the object is really, really difficult, sometimes you have to repair the mesh manually, like this. And then you get these results. And as example, I will show the three objects I showed you in renders like David showed you, so you can see if we were successful or not. So you can see the glass is perfectly digitized in this case. Also, the next one, the holes are fine, and the mesh looks like the real object here. So it is not impossible to digitize this. Also, the mirror here, which, oh, sorry, play. This also is with special effects added, but the basic texture, it's like it was the mirror, like it's darker part, like using the more neutral images. And this is how you can successfully digitize these problematic elements. So I hope I explained well and answered correctly your question.
Yes, thank you. These technical details are actually very interesting for those who work in archives and are have those humanity minds. So thank you very much. We have a question from audience to you, David. Have you published a collection of the photogrammetries of these daguerreotypes?
Yes, we already published it 2 years ago because that was part of another project, as I mentioned, that was the WIF project. So they are now in EUreka3D. But the thing is now that we are moving all this content to the data hub, and that is just because we need to. We need an infrastructure where we can publish the whole project. It's not just the viewer like it happened before. So we move to this specific infrastructure for 3D. But daguerreotypes are in Europeana, and they will continue because we just we change the link, but we'll be there in the same way.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from the audience. Is the Paradata report published somewhere?
Yes, the Paradata are published, but not in our case because we are still in the process of publishing the 50 object with the Paradata. We are finishing now, and at the end of the month, I hope everything will be accessible in Europeana. However, some of the members, like CUT, already publish the Paradata, and one of the elements in of the 3D projects in Europeana, that is the Lambusa boat. So if you are interested to have a look at the Paradata, the best option is to go there. So you can write us in EUreka3D, and we'll tell you the way to get this information. But yes, you have a model there with a very complete and with a big project that has nothing to do digitizing, for example, a peep show, or digitizing a boat, or digitizing a church or a monument. It's a different kind of project. But there you have the whole information for Paradata, and you can look how is the model for the Paradata.
Yes, thank you. And we have another question from the audience. As a part of the project, were you or are you looking for technological advancements such as automated workflows or robotized hardware? And are there any minimum quality requirements in terms of cloud point accuracy and color accuracy?
Yes, we are always looking for technological help with use of AI for archives. But for this specific question, I think Paul can answer this because he is the one who worked. Paul?
Yes. Which was the question? Sorry.
Yes, and Natalie?
Yeah, just a minute. I will read it again. Unfortunately, I don't see it anymore.
You go to
yes,
Okay,
I see it. Sorry. So the question is, as a part of the project, were you or are you looking for technological advancements such as automated workflow or robotized hardware, and are there any minimum quality requirements in terms of cloud point accuracy and color accuracy?
All right. Well, we are always looking for technological advancements. There are also the new techniques of Gaussian splatting and also NERF, but still they are not giving us quality on 3D meshes. They are offering good results on rendering, but still now the main focus point is to keep on capacity building and learn how to do properly photogrammetry and the techniques that now can overcome these difficulties.
Okay, thank you. We have a few more questions, and I think that we can move to, please, David, can you explain the concept of the memory twin in more detail?
Yes, the concept of memory twin was also something also new for us, because it's something that introduced in our project people from Cyprus, the CUT, as I mentioned them before. And it's very interesting because when you do a reproduction, you make a reproduction, you have the reproduction of the object. And if it's very precise and exact, you can consider that you have the memory twin. Instead, if this memory twin includes also the information, the cultural information, the documentary related to the object, then you have the memory twin. And when we think in the digitization of the heritage, what we need is a memory twin. So that's why the project doesn't finish with the digitization. We need to take into account all the possibilities to make it accessible from different aspects, but also to be connected to different concepts. So that's why it's so important, the metadata, but also all the vocabularies, the semantic content that can make new connections with this original object. That's the idea.
Okay, thank you.
Memory twin versus digital twin.
Yeah, thank you. And how the loss of digital files is mitigated? Isn't this risk in long term?
Yeah, this is always an issue, and archives know it very well. And in the digital field, okay, we have some solutions. First of all, we need an infrastructure that is safe, that you can check authenticity, fiability, etc. Then we need redundancy of the digital data, of course. Then we need the capacity of managing all these, and this means having information like technical paradata, not just the paradata I mentioned here for this project, but the technical paradata for preservation, like premise, for example. But then there is an issue is that the formats they need to be a standard, and that's something that it's solved in a way for photography, like the standards of photography, and there is a lot of literature and knowledge on JPEG, on TIFF, and we need how to manage in order to have the best PDF, the best TIFF, the best JPEG for archives, because it's very standardized. Instead, for 3D, I think still we are in the process. It's not that we have a solution. It looks like OBJ. It's very used, but we don't have still a standard for preservation. But I think this is something crucial because when you have the structure of information, you need to trust on this, and you need to understand how all this works, and mainly how to manage this.
And what software would you recommend to an institution to handle a collection of 3D assets, the Blender Assets Library, for example?
Yes, I think this question is also for Paul.
Yes. Okay, Paul, can you please answer this?
Well, I would not recommend software for storing. I would recommend to, on one hand, to store the files, for example, OBJ, GLB, and also to publish them online. If you want to have a software like Blender to have assets, it would be, for example, for doing XR, but not as for handling your collections. I don't know if I was clear on that.
Thank you. And the last question is, David, could you please explain the difference between paradata and technical metadata?
This is a very difficult question, because this is the question I make myself every time. But let's say paradata includes technical metadata, of course, because as I said, all the metadata that are part of the capture, for example, this is technical metadata. But paradata is a broader concept, because it includes all the information related to the creation. Some information that it's captured automatically, like the technical metadata from cameras, for example. but also information that it's captured manually, like, for example, the environment conditions, the information related to the accessibility to the object, to the monument, etc. So all the information that is related to the capture can be considered as metadata. Also, the information related to the complexity of the object. You analyze this object and then you assess the difficulty of digitizing, but this is included in the paradata. So from this point of view, I think it's good to have a look at the model I mentioned before, because there you will have a specific example of paradata. Even information about the technicians who work, what is the training of this technician, the professional status, let's say, all this is considered.
Thank you. That's all from the audience.
Yes, maybe just to conclude, given we are by the time that the webinar is finished. Thank you very much to David for the very nice keynote speech, and also to Paul for presenting so well this technical work. And thanks to Natalie for moderating the discussion so well. You find in the chat added by my colleagues a bit of coordinates to follow us, to access the registrations for the next webinar, to see the recording of the previous webinars and also this one. So thank you very much. I hope to see you again in the next webinar on the 15th of November. Thank you. Thank you very much.